Okay, Dan Doherty, when you're putting together a 2-minute impactful video from your experience, we're working with the students at Camosun College, what are the ways that a person puts together an impactful video with the opening and the closing? How do you make that work effectively? You're on.
Well, Vic, I think one of the most important things is to let the video do what it does best and let the audio do what it does best as well. I'll use the opposite. You think of a home movie and somebody's got their camera up and they're going, oh, look, there's the Eiffel Tower. It's really tall. And oh, look at the, there's the blue ocean. But those are all things that the video is already telling you. So what you want to show is something that only video can show. So that's the baseline. So then once you've got that idea of the visual, you want to show what's actually there in a way that's not normally seen. And another principle on that one is if I'm standing there taking snapshots of things, I'm kind of standing here, my 5'8", and I take pictures, and everything looks normal. But if I get my camera down on the ground, and I did this just the other day, and I take a picture, and there was a piece of rusty wire, and the river and a bridge, and I had the wire like right up front, and then the river, then the bridge in the background, just by dropping the camera down to the ground. Or another one is to hold it up high, and it gives you that different perspective. And that people are aware of that. It wakes them up. And an aspect of that also is when you move the camera. And I did another thing like this where, I was just taking a snapshot. I was standing at the side of the Fraser River looking down on the river, and I took a shot. And so then I did a little video where I actually tracked and I moved the camera, and the whole scene becomes alive because everything starts to move and interact. So those are three principles. And another piece would be the foreground, middle ground, and background. So again, in this shot, I was trying to set up, I had there's a little patch of sunlight way on the horizon shining on some sandbanks. And then the river snaked down. And then in the middle was this the river and the island and a bridge. And in the foreground were some branches that were just coming in and just kind of framed the picture a little bit as branches. So I get the sense of the near, middle, and distant ground. So it gives you that depth. So you set up your shots so that that's going on. So you're getting a lot of richness that way, rather than just a wide shot. And then another aspect of that is using the golden mean. So when you look at something that's attractively laid out, like I'm sitting here now in the middle of the screen, but if I position myself over here, now it's interesting. You'll see I've got a bit of looking room, so I could be talking, so that kind of thing. So you instead of doing this symmetrical, you just do the off symmetrical, and then you work it on the, I'm going to use my finger on there's the thirds, right? Rule of thirds there, and then same horizontally. And the sweet spot is in these where my fingertips are, and thumb tips are. So any key object, so if my head is here, you see, then it's on that third axis. So those are the kind of dimensions and ideas that you would work with to create a powerful visual and enhances the visual meaning as much as possible. And then the story you tell is a narrative. So instead of describing what's in the picture, you say, okay, so I would look down at this, I use this example, photograph, in the foreground is the edge of the bluff, bridge in the middle ground, river in the foreground. Well, there's this bridge, nice bridge. It's a one-lane bridge, okay. But there's a plaque on the bridge that says, this is one man's dream. So there was a rancher who had the dream of connecting the two sides of the Fraser River, and this bridge was the result of that. So there was a community on each side, and it was quite a steep thing, so you wouldn't be able to get across. You'd have to have cable or something going across. So this guy's vision was to be able to drive back and forth, and he created this bridge. So then the narrative would be the story of this guy, his family, his ranch, and how he came to create the bridge, which then enlivens the whole scene. So I think that's what you want to do for Victoria. You show a nice picture, oh, isn't that nice flowers of Victoria? But what's the history? Why is it like that? and what's the experience of someone going to have by flying to Victoria on Victoria WOW Airlines, to show up there and have that experience.
Okay. And you've only got 2 minutes. Okay, I understand a little bit more now about the aspects, and I was a little bit over to one side, but is one side better than the other?
Well, there's a bit of now this is in our culture. To me, you're on the right-hand side. So if you're looking, you look into the blank space a bit. So that's kind of looking into the past. You could look at it that way. And then looking to the right, if there's more space there, that's a bit more of the future. So there's a bit of logical stuff up, ideas, or down. You can play with that a little bit.
So I'm getting an idea on the actual videoing, and I'm just recapping it here. And if you take a picture of a scene or something, like for example, I'm thinking the one I was thinking of is the Alpine Rock Garden at Beacon Hill Park.
Yes.
Well, it turns out somebody had decided he would create it. I think he's a volunteer, and decided to create this Alpine Rock Garden right in the middle of Beacon Hill Park. Now that's a little unusual because it's an alpine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an oak meadow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's flowers and vegetation of the alpine. That's an example. And then even just taking Beacon Hill Park, there's certain bridges that have some historical value and something. You've only got 2 minutes. Now, I mean, I'm thinking of a Toastmasters. Toastmasters want a good opening and a good body with stories and a good conclusion. What's the secret for putting together a 2-minute video that has it? I can see all the things you've said, but you're putting together for Victoria. Tell me what you would do. You wanted something unique about the reason why people would visit Victoria, and with this video, they would see things or find out things that they wouldn't normally find out in TripAdvisor.
Yes. Okay. Well, yes. So that's the local's eye view. That's the stuff. There's all the standard things that are in the guides for Victoria. I find that the eyewitness guide is pretty unique that way, particularly the ones for Europe. So you might look at the Icelandic eyewitness guide and see what they've got in there. But that particular series, because they show visuals, and I found when I've traveled, they just seem to capture all the highlights and show details. And it's like, yeah, that's what was important. Like they got the right stuff. You're talking about peeking under the hood a little bit and see, say, for example, within Beacon Hill Park, which is Victoria's lovely central park, there is this little space that's special. So that's where video can get in, and you could show a wide of that, but the magic is going to be in the close-ups. So this series of wide shots to show the natural beauty and the context, then getting into the tight shots that show the little bits and pieces and the granular bits that you don't really notice, and kind of sparks the brain. And this is part of that same idea of either having a high angle shot or a low angle shot. The other one is getting in really close, even to the point where it's a bit ambiguous. Like you'd show maybe like 3 shots of the Alpine Garden, and it's like, what? And then you'd explain it. You pull out, and this is an Alpine Garden specialty in the middle of this beautiful Beacon Hill Park. So you'd need to work out the story so that that's quite tight, because you've only got the 2 minutes, and you don't want to talk about all of Victoria. You can't cover the whole thing in 2 minutes, but you can cover, I don't know, maybe half a dozen like unique spots, and it's like, wow. Because the wide shots will speak for themselves. Shot from Beacon Hill, looking down across the grass, and there's the Olympic Mountains in the background. It's like, wow, right? You just need 2-3 seconds of that, and it's like, wow. And then you have like the Camas with the history of the native stuff and those rocks, and then you have like a few close-up shots, and you'd have to brainstorm probably what are the key things you want people to know about Victoria. That would
I mean, here's the
characteristic, that would be it would show the overall character, but also some of the nuances. And then like just select enough to give a feeling of, wow, there's quite a bit of interesting stuff there. And wow, overall, it's like really a stunning location.
Right. Okay. I'm getting it. How do you go about winning the 2-minute video? I want to get I mean, I'm getting some of the technical part, and thank God we're videoing this so I can review it.
Mhm.
But how do you go? How do you go to win the video? That's what I'm after, as well as all the stuff you've given.
I think you might find some examples in YouTube. You could look at, there are contests for video shorts, where kids have, or film students will have like an hour or like 24 hours to make a film from scratch, different amounts of time. And so looking at some of that, the kinds of things that you can pack into that short period of time. You might make it a story. I'm thinking here, this is just one thought. Like you need to come up with some structure. Do you start with the north and go to the south? Do you start with the history and come to the present? Or do you have a story? Like, could be like, your daughter's on a bike, right? And you start at mile 0. And it's like the 1-day bike review of Victoria. And here she is. She's now, at Cabra Bay. She's now on top of Mount Ptolemy or Mount Doug or something, so you just kind of, and there she is with her bike. So it's like, so you have this theme, and it's a narrative of her experience for the day. So I think
it'd be me on the bike.
So me as a traveler, so when Philip and I travel, we go in and we stay in one place, and then we travel from there, and each day is like a little journey. So we have these little walks that are the story of our trip there.
Wouldn't it be me on the bike? And
Sure.
my daughter is a videographer.
Okay, great. Well, it'd be you on the bike, sure.
That's
biking.
The Viking. And that, yeah. Hey, I'm loving the theme idea. I'm loving the idea of, what did you say? What was that other site you said? Experience? Eyewitness, or what was it?
Yeah, it's the Doreen Kindersley Eyewitness travel books. So there's like Eyewitness France. There'd be an Eyewitness Iceland.
Yeah, well, we're not traveling to Iceland. Eyewitness Victoria.
See, this is part of the other thing, is looking at your audience. So, you and I are talking, and we'd look at what we see of Victoria, but think of like, what is Iceland telling us about itself in terms of because there's a lot of promotion around Iceland, like come and stay in beautiful Iceland. So look at the kind of imagery that they're creating of Iceland, and then, so then what would how would you describe Victoria through that same kind of a...
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I believe that WOW Airlines is wanting to promote the idea that we fly to Barcelona, we fly to Frankfurt, we fly to Edinburgh, and we want 2 people to be hired for 3 months to just travel to these places and do a blog and do a video and do a Instagram and do all the things that could be done to be the traveling ambassadors. Now, we want to see whether these people can in fact do it by taking a look at their 2-minute video.
Yeah.
As near as I can see, the 2-minute video would be the sell. I don't think the fact that I'm a Viking, I don't know how I'd get that in, because I don't see a place to show up that I'm big on adult adventure deficit disorder. I'm big on overcoming procrastination. I biked across whatever. I've been to Zimbabwe. I don't see where that can get in, although I believe that could influence the decision, but I don't see how to get that in.
Right.
What they've asked so far. They've asked you to show your YouTube channel, show your Instagram channel,
Yeah.
show your Twitter account.
So it'd be, so what are the kind of tweets that you have? So let's say on the trips that you've done, or now this would be about Victoria, right? So, you could do you do travelogues and descriptions of these places you've been to, but so you got to look at Victoria from that perspective. So what my point around the bicycle was, there's some kind of a theme so it's a narrative, this story that hooks it all together, rather than just a montage of a bunch of different shots and locations, that it's like my day in Victoria, or how, something more interesting than that. Again, going back to the Eyewitness books, they have sections for all the different areas, but they also have, if you only have 1 day, what would you do? If you have 2 days, what would you do? And then like 3, and then they have some walks. So some themed walks where it's like, okay, you start here and you wander through this piece of history this way. What's along the way? So they look at it from those different kinds of angles. So that might be what you do for Victoria. What would be a logical theme? Where kind of there's boats, so it could be like a kayak. Kayak paddlers via Victoria, and you come in and you go up because you can paddle up to Bouchart's. You can paddle into the inner harbor. You can paddle up to one of the beaches. Paddle one of the lakes. So that could be the theme, right? And it hooks it all together, and it's like, wow, man, I could what an experience. So your person watching is having the experience of what it'd be like to be in Victoria through this personal lens.
Can you see a way to tie in your beach project?
Oh, I think there's Victoria is so
Beach friend.
It's surrounded by water, right? And it's all about the little coves and things. So it wouldn't be hard to weave that in. I mean, even if you went to Mile Zero, right below Mile Zero is the beach where Steve Fonyo stuck his foot in the water. Fonyo Beach.
Yeah, I know where it is. Yeah.
So that sort of thing. So there's lots, and then to say that you can access all these beaches, because that's something actually that's unique about Canada, is that the foreshore is public. And that there are actually accesses all around every there has to be less than a 500K in the city, and every kilometer in the rural areas there has to be public access to the shoreline. In the States you don't have that. It's like you go to the wharf and everything else is private.
All right, so let's conclude by saying I got all of that, but what's the key thing in the structure to win it? Like, I know that if you I helped Alex win the Digital Jam video, but because I said you had to have a good opening and then a middle and a conclusion. Mm-hmm. That's a Toastmasters thing, but what's the story on?
More the twist. A good narrative has a beginning, middle, twist, and an end. So you get that climax of like, oh, and then you solve it. So I mean, one idea is instead of a montage of Victoria and all these neat things, you have the beginning, like the sun comes up, sunrise, Victoria, Mount Baker, and then you go through the day, and then some adventure happens. There's something, I don't know whether it's like fun or whether it could be like risky something, or you just make the bus to Bouchart's Gardens to get there in time for the lights at night, or something, and then sunset, you're done. Something like that would be a little bit of a twist.
We ended up at Herman's last night.
Great.
That's a twist.
Indeed. Yeah, because see now that's inside outside as well, because Victoria's lots about all that's going on outside, but then into some of the places. I wouldn't show Big Bad John's, but that's a place. With all the bras hanging in the ceiling.
I know what Big Bad John's is.
But some interior place too.
The interesting thing is that the singer last night at Herman's sang a song that was written by my daughter.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. I don't know how to get that into the thing. Anyway, I'm going to end this recording because this is...
Good luck with your video. You're a winner.
Okay. Recording. Ending. Do you want to stop cloud recording? Well, I can...